Okay, now that we have our loom strung with our warp thread, we're going to start to add our yarn to make our tapestry. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of cardboard, it's about an inch and a half, and we're going to weave this in, and this is going to be the base of our piece, and that's going to give us a little bit of room so we'll be able to pull our threads off later to tie them together. So I'm going to just do classic just weaving over, under, over, under. I'm going to feed that in. I'm going to move this all the way to the bottom of my piece. Okay. The next thing that we're going to insert is this came from the side of your loom. This is called your shed stick. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you like a little area going one way that you'll be able to feed your yarn through. So since I did this over under, I'm going to go the opposite direction. Just kind of keep those threads nice and even. So you see I'm going the opposite of what I was just doing. Okay. So what this does is when I turn it, it separates my threads. You can kind of see it makes like a little area that I can put, makes like a little hole. And then I'll be able to put my either my needle or my shuttle through very easily. So but for right now I'm just going to kind of leave it like this. Now, the next piece that you have in your kit is this piece with the two little notches on the side. It's called a shuttle. If you have a large area that you're going to do, you might want to use this just because it's a little easier to kind of feed it through. If you're going to have a smaller area, like you're going to be making a design that's going to be smaller, then you'll be using your tapestry needle. Okay, but for long areas like this, you could use this shuttle here. So to start, we're going to go left to right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn. I'm going to just feed it in a little bit. So I'm going to go, if you look here, this cardboard is over this piece. I'm going to go the opposite way. So you always want to go opposite of what you were just doing. So go over, under. So I'm just taking my tail and I'm just kind of pulling it in a couple of strings, a couple of my warp strings. Now the yarn is called the weft thread. Okay, so I'm going to just leave that a couple of pieces. Okay, so I have my yarn just kind of threaded through here, a couple of lines, and what that's going to do is it's going to help lock it in. So I'm going to have that last little piece is going to go down. Now I have my shuttle. I have my shuttle here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go over and I'm going to open my shuttle. No, I'm not. I'm not going to open it. I'm going to this line. So I'm going to go, since I have this going under, now I'm going to go over. So I'm going to just take my shuttle. I'm going to move my shed stick kind of all the way up so it's kind of out of my way. And now I'm going to go over, under, over, under, over, under with my shuttle that has my yarn on it. And this I'm going to make my header. And so what my header is it's just an amount of yarn kind of at the bottom like of my weaving. It's going to kind of like lock everything in to start. And this thread here, don't worry about it because it's as you start weaving, it's going to kind of get compressed down and it'll stay in place. So you can see I'm trying to pay attention, making sure it's going over, under, over, under. And now I'm all the way at the end. Now when you're doing your weaving, you want to make sure you have this nice arc. And then you're going to take, I would use a plastic fork just because you can kind of get between the threads. You're going to push this all the way down. Okay, and then this is going to get locked in a little later. We don't want to pull the side strings. We don't pull this too tight because then our weaving is going to kind of curve in. We want it to be nice and straight. So now I'm going to go the opposite direction. And so since this is the opposite direction, I can use my shed stick and I'm going to open this up. Okay, because I'm going to go through this channel with my shuttle. You see how I'm going to go under this thread, and that makes a nice little lane for me to kind of go into. Okay, and then we got to put this down again. You want to make sure that you have this nice arc, because the arc is going to keep it so that you're not pulling on the warp threads. So again, I'm going to kind of just push this down. Okay, pull it a little tighter and push this down. Don't worry if your end is a little loose, because you could always go back with the needle tool. I mean your tapestry needle, and you kind of fix that up. But you can see here that now this is nice and tight down there. So what we just did is we just did 2 rows. So right now in my weaving I have 2 rows. So now I'm going to go back and forth. I want to have about 5 or 6 rows just to kind of lock in this bottom of my tapestry. So I'm going to go back and forth, and I'm going to do that. Remember, pay attention to where you ended. So if I was under here, then the next row I have to go over. You want to make sure that when you're going, you have this nice arc, because then, and before you start pushing down the thread, the yarn, because then that will make sure that your tapestry doesn't get pulled in at the end. So I'm going to go back and forth and get about 5 or 6 rows on here. Okay, so I have my header here. I have about 10 rows. I could make this a little bigger if I want to, but I'm going to stop there. What I'm going to do is I want to change my color yarn, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to weave it so I can bury it into the tapestry. So I'm going to go under, just a couple of rows. I'm just going to kind of bury it back here. I'm going to grab it. Just going to leave that string back there. And then this will get locked in as I weave more later on. Okay, so that's my first stripe of color. So I'm going to go on to my next color. Now, for our tapestry, you want to have a pattern or something that's going to go on with your piece. The easiest one is stripes, because then all you have to do is count how many rows you want to do, and then you change the thickness as you go. If you want to have a thick, so if this is a 10 rows, then maybe I'll have one that's 5 rows, and then 10 rows, 5 rows, 10 rows, and make a pattern that way. There's other shapes you can make. You can do squares, you can do triangles, and I'll try and show you each of those. So I just showed you this is a regular weave. I now want to show you how to add new yarn. So I'm going to be working not a huge area like this, so I think I'm going to switch to my tapestry needle. So I'm going to use brown. So I'm going to thread my tapestry needle. Okay. And now I'm going to grab my end here. And again, I'm just going to kind of feed it in. And I'm going to kind of feed it in, I think, almost the same way that I did the last one, just because I'm going to go opposite, because then I'm going to go the right way. There we go. Just a couple little things in here. Just going to push it down. Just going to lock that in. Okay. I'll just show you the different way of doing this, not with the shuttle, but just with the tapestry needle. So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to kind of feed the needle back and forth. Pull it through. Pull it through. Just make sure that when you pull it through that you're paying attention to where you left off, so you don't miss any pieces. Over. So again, I'm going to pull this through. So for this yarn, I only have about 2 arms lengths. I don't want to have a ton, but I want to have enough to kind of work with. And again, I'm going to have this nice arc. I'm going to take my fork here. I'm going to kind of push that down. Okay, I'm going to push this. Make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, but like for stripes, you're just going to count how many rows you want to do. Now I use my shed stick, so the opposite way. So the thing about the shed stick is it's really good. It's handy because it helps you go fast one direction, so it's not as time consuming. Okay, remember I want to have that nice arc. Put my shed stick down. Okay, so that's one way. So now this is the pattern I can make with stripes. Okay, so I have a nice little stripe there, and then if I wanted to, I could go back and I could go back to my green and then go a couple rows of green to make stripes. But so stripes is one of the easier things to do. It's very easy to kind of keep it even because you're just counting how many rows you want to do. Okay, we'll go one more. Okay, one more. Again, it's important to have that arc. And then, because that'll help you prevent the tapestry from pulling on the side. Okay. And you really want to beat this down. There's a tool, but it's called the beater, and it beats down the yarn strings to kind of keep everything nice and tight. So that's a nice little string there. Another shape we could do would be a square. So maybe I'll do a little rectangle here with my brown. So maybe I'll go up a little. But for a rectangle, it's the same way as making a block this way. You just don't do the whole thing. So you don't make a rectangle that's only like to here. So what I'm going to do is when I'm going with my thread, I would stop however wide I want my rectangle to be. So I want my rectangle to be that big. Put my stick down. So now, instead of going all the way to the end, I'm going to just be focusing on these three strings here. So I have it right to here, and now I'm going to go over under. Again, have that nice arc. And all I'm going to do is just go whoop, back and forth in this small area. Now you can see that I'm kind of building that shape. I can just make it go up as high as I want. But you see that I'm focusing just on this area right here. Focusing on just this area here. Again, make sure there's an arc. Use my shed stick. Go the opposite direction until I feel like I have this. I mean, I could go up much higher. And again, have that arc. Make sure I'm not pulling my warp threads. I have that nice little raised area there. And let's just say I want to maybe do something similar on the other side. What I can do is I'm going to kind of bury this in here. I'm going to go a couple of rows, a couple of things here, and then pull it. Okay, I'm going to cut it. And then with my next row, that will kind of be stuck in there. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 rows. Right, 1, 2, 3. I have 4 rows. 1, 2, 3. Nope, not 4 rows, more than that. Oh no, here we go. I did 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about 4 rows. So I'm going to go back over here on my other side. And I want to match that. Let's see how many things wide I did it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rows wide. So again, I'm going to come in on this side. I'm going to go just bury this in. Okay. I'm going to bury that in. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 15. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, push that down. I'll make sure it's the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now I'm going to go back the other way. Okay, so I'm on my last row right here for this rectangle. You want to make sure that you're going in the right direction, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and fill this little area here. We want to make sure that how we're filling it matches up. So right now I should have it should match up. And now I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to feed it. I'm going to just feed this back and forth a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the back. And then I'm going to cut it. Okay, and all these strings in the back are going to get woven in later on, but okay. So I have this little tiny spot right here that I think I'm going to fill with the green. And so I'm going to take it off of my shuttle because I need to use my tapestry needle for this. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to be weaving in this tiny little area, and we need to be also connecting and like weaving to the strings that are already covered kind of here, so kind of in between. So I'm going to put my tapestry needle on here, and I need to start my piece in here. So I think I'm going to kind of put it in this piece here. So I'm kind of separating the strings. I'm pulling this through, and I want to weave this end. So I'm burying my yarn, and then I'm going to separate these loops here, and I'm going to go around. And you want to pay attention to what the last row was that you did. So I'm going to stop right there, because I'm looking at the last actual row, not the row that I wove in my little tail, but the last actual row. So I want to go back and forth. So here, if I look at my last row, this is under and over. Okay, and now I'm gonna go under, and now I'm gonna go over and then under. I'm separating my loops, and that's gonna go right in there. Okay, and now I'm gonna go the other way. Under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and I'm gonna separate my loops. Go through that little hole there, pull it through. Again, trying to pay attention to that arc. Okay, and I'm going to push this down. And I'm going to kind of pull that a little bit more. Okay. Now I'm going to go the other way. So here's under. I'm going to go over. Over, under, over, over, under. Now I'm going to go push my two things aside, and I'm going to go under. Pull that. Again, make sure I have that little. Okay. So you can see that I'm kind of locking it in between these rows. Go over, 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 under, over, under. This is going to go. Let's separate those loops. I'm going to go in here, pull it through. Okay. So you can kind of see that I'm locking those pieces in. This is under, over, under, over. Over, under. And then I'm going to separate these two here. It's my last little separation. And I'm going to go over, under. And pull. Have that little arc. And I'm going to beat all this down. I'll probably do. You can kind of see that those pieces are locked in, and then I might go this way. Over, under, over. Just to kind of bury that underneath. And then when I bury that underneath, when I do my next row of color, then everything should work out. But you see how I just kind of filled that area in? And I interlocked those pieces with my pieces that I have over here. Okay, so that's how to do rectangles, how to do like little, we did stripes, rectangles. This is how we filled it in. And then I'm gonna have a separate video show you guys how to make a pattern on like a piece of graph paper, and then how to follow that.